Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone from all over the globe. My name is Gene King, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. We'll just wait a few more minutes to get started to allow everyone a chance to log in. So I'll be back with you in just a bit. Again, to everyone around the globe, best of all of you, wherever you may be this evening and during this particular time. My name is Gene King. I'm Senior Managing Director of Sequence Holdings, and also I'm the current Chairman of the Board of the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce Southeast. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you for coming back again, who have been with us from the very beginning of our educational series of webinars. And for those of you that are here for the first time, thank you for being here today. This is our fourth session with InvestAmerica, DHP, and the Brazilian American Chamber with our immigration webinar series. Today is going to be interesting, featuring our EB1C green card. So look forward to us really getting involved and talking about this. I got a little bit of housekeeping that I'd like to share with everyone before we get started. First of all, if for whatever reason you can't understand or hear because of the way it's being broadcast, at the very bottom you see an all panelists and attendees section where you can chat. So if you click the chat and just let everybody know you can't hear properly, that would be the important thing so that we can move forward. I'd like to advise all of you that this recording is live and being broadcast via Facebook, and the link to the Facebook page will be shared with everyone attending in just a second. So again, watch the light on your chat button light up, and that's where, if you want to grab that and send it to somebody while the webinar is happening, you can do so. Couple of more items. Please know that we are here to answer questions. In the bottom, there's a Q&A button. That's very important that if you have a question, use that Q&A button, because we will have available persons that speak Portuguese, English, Mandarin, and Spanish. So whatever language you speak, press the Q&A button. And please give us a question and we'll try to get back to you with answers. If we don't get back to you all with your answers, we will follow up after the webinar and make sure that that question you have was answered. So I think that kind of cuts through all of the housekeeping issues. So let's now get started. Have a great program again tonight, presented by the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce Southeast, hosted by InvestAmerica, an immigration consulting firm, and in partnership tonight, again, with David Hirson and Partners, LLC, an international immigration law firm. Now, our topic for discussion today is of great interest to foreign families that are looking for a pathway to invest, live, and work in the USA with a green card for permanent residence in the United States. We'll be discussing the topics of what's the purpose of an EB1C program, its requirements, overall cost and processing times, the benefits, and 3 qualifying categories that are important to understand how to utilize the EB1C program, the EB1C program versus EB5 in a comparison. We're going to talk about and hear from InvestAmerica Consulting Services, also David Hirson and Partners Immigration Services are going to be a part of the program. So for this discussion, joining us today is a team of folks to guide us on this journey, who each provide experienced and sound advice on how to apply for the EB1C visa to get the permanent green card status for you and your family. I'm having to do a couple of little clicks here, so everybody bear with me, okay? So With us today, we have representatives from InvestAmerica and also David Hirson and company and his partners. I'd like to ask each of these panelists to introduce themselves. A simple introduction, state your name, the company, your position and responsibilities within the immigration industry and the EB-1C visa program. So let's start with InvestAmerica, and then we'll follow up with the DHP team. Mike Zennick from InvestAmerica, would you give an introduction, please?
Thank you, Gene. My name is Mike Zennick. I'm the founder, president, and CEO of InvestAmerica. We've been in the immigration for investment arena for about 10 years. We are an investment banking firm as well as a consulting firm, and we focus on helping businesses, helping investors, and finding ways to help investors come to the United States, as well as working with businesses to make sure that they are properly capitalized, and that in essence will help investors that are looking for the EB-1C route to come to the United States and finding businesses that are suitable for that visa. My background is based in public accounting. I'm a accountant by education and worked for Ernst & Young globally for the start of my career, and then have been in the investment banking business since 1994. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Gene, for other introductions.
Thank you. David Hirson and partner, would you mind giving an introduction to yourself?
Sure, thank you. I'm David Hirson, a co-managing partner of David Hirson and Partners LLP. With me today, she'll introduce herself in a moment, is my co-managing partner, Evelyn Hahn. We are an immigration law firm in Southern California, and we focus more particularly on business and investment immigration law, although we do all other aspects of immigration law, including suing the US government when they don't do the job as they should. I'm certified by the state of California as a specialist in immigration and nationality law, and I've been very active in the immigration law field for quite some time. The EB-1C is a method in which I used in its then title to enter the United States and get my green card in 1980. So I've experienced this. It's been around a long time. It's still working, and we have a great success record on it. And with that, I'll pass you back to Gene.
Thank you, David. Evelyn, who works side by side with David, would you mind giving everyone an introduction to yourself in whatever language you choose?
All right, can you hear me well?
Very well.
Yes.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Evelyn Hahn, and I'm a managing partner at David Hirson and Partners LLP, alongside our founding and managing partner, David Hirson. What a year 2020. I'm sure the year 2020 was such a special one that no one can ever forget, both good and bad, right? As it was such a great opportunity for all of us to sort of think about what should be our priorities in life and take a pause to think about how thankful we are to just have stuff, just general normal stuff that we used to take for granted. I'm just really glad that it's almost over now, and it is my absolute pleasure to be here today to have our very last webinar of this special year 2020. I thank InvestAmerica and Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce Southeast for hosting and inviting us to this great webinar event. And in my capacity, I just wanted to explain that I manage our entire firm's work, and with my Korean fluency, I also lead our Korean practice group. I myself was born and raised in South Korea, and interestingly, our family immigrated to the US through my father's EB-1C green card, as he was an executive of the global company in South Korea. So I've been practicing immigration law for more than 10 years, including my paralegal years. It is my 12th year, including my paralegal's year. And EB-1C has always been one of my top specialty areas, as I was particularly interested in this program because this is how I myself was able to obtain my green card. So today I look forward to sharing my input with you guys about this program. And I'm really excited to be here today. Thank you.
Evelyn, thank you very much. what I'm going to do now is we'd like to let you all know that we're doing our best to be able to answer any questions that anyone might have. So we have experts that I'm going to introduce in just a second. And they speak the languages Mandarin, Portuguese, Spanish, of course, English. And they will kind of be in the background for any questions, answers. So don't be shy about trying to communicate whatever language you feel comfortable with. We're there. The ladies' names are Marcella, Patty, and Mila. And I'm going to ask them if they would to unmute themselves and turn on their cameras so that I can kind of get a little introduction going.
Hello, guys. My name is Mila Diolano. I work with InvestAmerica. I'm here for any Portuguese and Spanish and English questions. So look for me if you need any help. Don't be shy. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I work with David Hirson and partners, and I'm here to answer any questions as well in Portuguese and Spanish, and here to assist. I hope you enjoy the webinar.
And Patty.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Patty Wang. I work at David Hirson and Partners, LLP. Like most of our clients, investors, we're always looking for good projects, businesses in the US that presents the ability to support our clients with their green cards. I've personally spent a lot of time working with investor clients and agents from China. I'm here today to assist our managing partners to answer any business and investment immigration questions you may have. You can write your questions in Chinese and I will pass them on to the panel in English. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. All three ladies will be muted and off camera, but they will be there for us during the entire event. So please don't hesitate to reach out in the section of Q&A, and they will quickly get back to any of you that have questions, or to everyone if it pertains to such. So let us move on and start with the basics of EB1C visa. And for that, we'll give the word to the experts on the immigration side. David and Evelyn, I want to thank you again for being here with us today. So please go ahead and let's educate this group that's on the webinar with an overview of the EB1C visa program, its real definition, requirements, timelines, your thoughts on the key points that differ this visa from the EB5 program. Thank you, David and Evelyn.
Thank you, Gene. Just for repetition very quickly, you will see on the screen what we will discuss today. Gene has already spoken about it, and I don't know if we need to say it again. Moving on, I'll pass it over to Evelyn for the first major slide.
All right, next slide, please.
Next, next, next. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna start off with the purpose of the program, requirements and costs, and the processing time. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is the EB1C immigrant visa program, visa petition? So EB1C green card allows multinational global companies to transfer high-level managers or their executive employees already working abroad in their headquarter office in the foreign country to their US entities in order to undertake permanent managerial or executive positions in the US. So there has to be a relationship between the foreign company and US company, which David will go over in the next slide. But it is really for those high-level executive or manager of the global companies. It allows companies to expand globally by transferring the foreign business practices to the US. So they're trying to encourage and facilitate, promote commerce between the US and foreign countries. That's the main purpose of the program. Next slide, please.
Well, these managers and executives cannot be the low level of managers or executives. They have to be right near the top. They also have to have worked for at least one continuous year of physical employment for the foreign company during the last 3 years. They'll be transferred to a new or existing parent, subsidiary, or affiliate or branch company in the US to undertake those managerial or executive responsibilities. The US company, to allow for the green card, must have been in business for at least 1 year, and it must be viable. If it's a new company, usually people will come through on an L1, and we'll discuss that very briefly a little later. The amount of capital is not specifically defined. It has to be reasonable to run and or start the business, and it has to leave the business in a viable position, so it has the financial ability to continue business and to pay the transferring employees more than living wage, his full salary. Evelyn, next slide, please.
Okay, so no, previous slide, please. Different definition. Yes. Okay, so there are two types of positions that qualify for EB1C Green Card program. First one is managerial position. The other one is executive position. So a lot of people ask us, what's the difference between the two? Because it can easily overlap. You know, some people, some general managers can do certain things that can be considered as executive duties, and some executive can do some stuff that general managers or more senior level managerial employees do. It is true, and we totally agree with you. However, USCIS recently began to raise the issue when we claim or try to explain that that person can do both managerial and executive duties, and they began to ask us to clarify and distinguish and determine whether this is managerial position or whether this is executive position. So we try to put the exact definition that government utilize. So manager usually manages the organization or a department, subdivision, function, or component of the organization. And they're the manager of the managers. So usually under them, under their supervision, there's another level of managerial employees and or other professional employees. Usually the position that requires a bachelor's degree or higher are considered as professional positions. So the top manager, which is our client, EB1C client, should have both managerial employees under them as well as professional employees holding the position that requires at minimum bachelor's degree. Sometimes these clients, the managerial employee can also manage the essential function of the organization. Instead of only focusing on managing the people, they can also manage the essential global function of the organization. Also, they have authority, usually have authority to hire and fire those people being supervised by them, the manager, and they exercise discretion over the day-to-day operations. The executive employee usually directs the management of the organization or major component or function, and they're the one who usually establishes the goals and big picture policies. Instead of overseeing day-to-day activities or operational functions, they usually set the big picture, broader goals and policies. And they exercise wide latitude in discretionary decision-making authority, power. And they receive only general supervision or direction from higher level executive. So they would only report to the top level, like shareholders or higher level executive, and they're usually the top of the hierarchy chain. So just recently, another important note that we want to highlight is that just recently, USCIS not only asked for the company support letter confirming that this is a true managerial or executive position, but they also began to request for actual hard evidence, additional evidence to prove their authority as a manager or executive. So it is really important to keep that in mind. And when we have to demonstrate their managerial or executive position, we not only have to put explain and memorialize in the support letter, but also have to collect all the hard evidence to show their authority, such as meeting minutes, contracts signed by them. any kind of email communications or even text messages between manager or executive employee with their subordinates, any kind of bank information or bank statement showing that they have authority to access companies' high-level information such as bank financial statements, all kinds of materials, documents, extra hard evidence that we can demonstrate their authority as a manager or executive are very important, especially nowadays. Next slide, please.
Well, I mentioned earlier that I came to the United States using this program, and shortly afterwards, I began practicing immigration law, and I drew this particular sketch. At the time, London Bridge was the only clip art I could find, and it's just kept its position. So let's look at what this is all about. On the left-hand side, on the side of the world globe, is your manager or executive who's going to transfer to the right-hand side, which is the US entity. The left-hand side manager or executive must have been in that capacity for at least 1 year in the past 3 years. We then have the US entity, which, as I mentioned earlier, has to be trading and financially viable for at least 1 year. And the person must be coming across to fill a similar managerial or executive capacity. The business of each company on each side of the world does not have to be the same, but it is preferable in persuading immigration. We now have the bridge itself. So if you understand that each tower supports the bridge, being the foreign corporation on the left and the US corporation on the right, you then have a span across the bridge to allow our person to transfer. These towers mean the strength, viability, and ongoing business of the respective countries for that company group. So what happens? You also have to have, let's go to the top left-hand corner, the relationship between the foreign company and the US company. It can be affiliate, where the two companies are controlled by one or more of the same shareholders or entities, or it can be subsidiary parent, where one company owns a controlling interest in the other. It can go in either direction. So the span across the bridge is that relationship. So now we look at the potential for failure. If the foreign company closes or fails, that tower will break and the bridge will collapse. If the US company doesn't make it to a viable, financially strong enough company, that tower will break and the bridge collapses. If the relationship mentioned in the top left-hand corner, which is now the span joining the bridges, changes so it's no longer qualifying, the bridge will collapse. In any of these three events, what will happen is our little man manager will fall into the ocean and have to swim home, so that his case will be over. So that's why we've drawn it this way, just so that you can have a sketch of what it's about. Next slide, please.
All right, so we're gonna quickly go over EB1C procedural steps and cost. So there are 3 different steps. First step, we have to file something called I-140 immigrant visa petition with US Immigration, USCIS. So this is the petition filed by the sponsoring company. So we first have to file I-140 form showing that the company, US company, intends to sponsor for this person's EB1C green card. So it takes about 8+ months. And unfortunately, unlike other visa categories, this EB1C program does not have the option to expedite the processing called premium processing. So we have to wait for 8+ months. There's a filing fee, government fee of $700 as of now. And legal fee is not included here. So for those who are interested, please contact us after this webinar and we can share with you about our fees. Step 2, then we have to file green card application. So depending on where the client is located, EB1C employee is located, there are two ways to go through step 2, accomplish step 2. First, if the client employee is in the US already, mostly in L1 visa, then we can adjust their status from L1 to EB1C green card by filing Form I-485 adjustment of status application with USCIS in the US. So depending on which country they are from, if their visa number is current, then we can even file I-140 step 1 and 485 step 2 concurrently at the same time. So 485 also does not have the option of filing premium processing. So we have to wait usually 8 to 12 months to get I-485 green card application approved. However, the advantage of filing 485 is that we are also able to apply for their work authorization, work permit, by filing the form called I-765 and travel permit called I-131 at the same time, together with 485. And luckily, the work permit and travel permit, it only takes about 4 to 6 months. It used to take much less time than 4 to 6 months, but with COVID-19 and anti-immigration policy in place, it's taking more time than it used to take. So it usually takes 4 to 6 plus months to obtain this work permit and travel permit in this one combo card called EAD card. So while 485 green card application is still pending, the EB1C employee can utilize this EAD card to start working and travel internationally. If they are already in the US in another work visa that allows them to work, they can continue working based on their non-immigrant visa status without activating this EAD card. So difference between the two, we can talk about it when you reach out to us after this webinar. If they're outside the US, then what we can do is we can file the application called DS-260 with the consulate in their country. It really depends, the time it takes to obtain green card visa, immigrant visa through consular processing outside the US really varies. It depends on each consulate in different country, but it shouldn't take more than 3 months, but depending on COVID-19 situation, it can take up to 6+ months. And the fee, application fee as of today is $345. And again, our legal fee to handle step 2 is not included. We can talk about it when you reach out to us separately. Last step is to have immigrant visa interview, regardless of whether the client is in the US or outside the US, there's going to be a visa interview. Usually, if they're in the US already, it used to be that we did not have interview before, but they recently implemented this new visa interview, even for employment-based green card. So now everyone has to go through the visa interview. So that's the last step. Next slide, please.
Next slide again, please. And next slide, please. I'm going to talk to you about the differences, benefits of the EB1C, which is the intercompany transfer, or the multinational executive or manager, and the EB5, which we had in an earlier presentation, which is the $1 million or $1.8 million investment, where at least 10 people have to be employed full-time on payroll. They must be legal and work for that company. So there's several differences that apply. Firstly, you have no requirement to have any overseas ownership in the US EB5 company, where with the EB1C, you have to have that qualifying relationship, affiliate, subsidiary, etc., as mentioned. The company will petition, this is on EB1C, for the EB1C transferee, whereas the EB5 investor petitions for himself based on the investment being made. There's no strict statutory requirement for the amount of money that has to be invested, the capital in the EB1C company. But with the EB5, as I mentioned, it's $900,000 or $1.8 million. The source and path of the funds with EB1C has to be shown, but nowhere nearly as stringent and detailed as it has to be given with the EB5 investment. There's no specific educational requirements. You just have to have that job experience and qualification. And there's no educational requirement or work experience for the EB1C. You have to wait for at least 1 year of the company's operations, whereas there's no waiting with the EB5, but practically there's a much longer wait because of the time it takes to process the cases and the EB1C. There's some other benefits. Firstly, spouses and children unmarried and under 21 attached to both types of cases. When Evelyn mentioned the work permit and the travel document, not only will the principal get those documents, but so will the family. They will be able to travel and work, and those who go to school can go to any school. A benefit under the EB1C is if people have utilized the L1 intercompany transfer non-immigrant visa, is that they could have been, the dependents could have been going to any school, and the wife on application, which takes about 8 months, would get a permit to work, or the husband, the spouse, work at any place. So those are some of the benefits. With EB5, it's a two-step process in that to get the green card, you'll go through the 3 stages that Evelyn has mentioned, the slightly different forms, and then you're allowed into the US for a conditional period of 2 years. At the end of the 2 years, in a 3-month window, you have to show that you placed the investment, that the money invested has not been returned to you. It could have been lost, but it can't be paid back to you, and that the 10 requisite employees have been hired. With that, an application is made that will remove the condition. This application, once done, depending on your offering documents and what you've signed with the company, will permit you to get money back after filing and after the 2 years has passed. Whereas the actual application is currently taking anything from 2 to 4 years to be approved. So that's where we're at the moment. That's the basic differences. It's worth looking at and seeing why you would like to go with one or the other. And each has specific advantages and disadvantages for the individual and their families. Thank you. Next slide. And over to Glenn. Greg, sorry.
Got several buttons I'm having to press here to make sure everything works. David and Evelyn, thank you. What a great presentation to make sure that all persons watching this tonight and knowing and understanding the process for the EB1C visa program. Thank you both very much. So after understanding what the EB1C program is about, its timeline and requirements, it now comes to a very important part of choosing the right pathway, the right business to pursue with the visa. InvestAmerica is with us again tonight, is experienced in the investment for immigration space and further and even more experienced in the business advisory space. InvestAmerica and its sister company, Sequence Financial Specialists, utilize a business transactional team with over 100 years of combined experience to accomplish what they work with. This experience is of key importance in helping EB1C investors find the suitable, structured, and financially sound business to achieve the permanent residency in the US via the EB1C green card. Again tonight, and I'm going to ask Mike again to come back on and tell us a little bit about InvestAmerica and what it does specifically, to find these businesses and help assist the EB1C investor and their family to complete the transaction, working alongside with David Hirson and his partners in the immigration legal team. I think our webinar attendees will also be interested, Mike, to hear about the InvestAmerica's mission, your success stories, maybe some families you've helped and continue to help, and what InvestAmerica can do for the families and the investors, all with us today looking for an alternative route to immigrate to the United States and the green card. So Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you now and ask you to please give us your information about InvestAmerica.
Great, thank you, Gene. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with you, and thank you to David and Evelyn for a great presentation. It's, as you saw, the EB1C green card path is not simple. It's not for everybody, but it's a very viable route that has a lot of advantages. Can you go to the previous slide, please? So I want to spend 1 minute on this slide. And as Gene said, we've got a lot of experience in the business advisory space, helping businesses and investors and companies for the last 26 years to be properly capitalized, to help business owners sell their businesses, help other businesses buy businesses, help get the financing and the funding necessary. And as we've migrated into the investment for immigration space since 2010 and through InvestAmerica starting in 2012, our focus shifted more closely to investors and individual investors coming from outside the United States. Our mission basically is, as it states here, to guide, protect, and support families as they immigrate to the United States. We don't take that lightly, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means as we go through. Next slide. So just a real quick background on us. You see this FINRA graphic on the left here. This is the regulatory body that we answer to here in the United States. It's the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. It is the enforcement arm of the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. All broker-dealers have to be members of this organization, and we have to abide by its rules. We operate a lot differently than other people in the immigration for investment space. We're not a regional center. We're not an agent. We're not, I guess, a service provider in the sense that, we provide different things to different projects and companies. We are in it to represent the investors, and we are regulated. We are securities professionals. We have our licenses that we have to sit through very rigorous exams for, and everything that we do is monitored on a daily basis. All of our emails are reviewed. So we have to make sure that we're doing things right by the investor. We have a duty to act in their best interests, and that is got to be shown to our regulatory body. So I want to make sure that I can't overemphasize that enough. And we represent investors from the moment we meet them until the moment they exit whatever investment they got into. So even, most people's role is done once they've made the investment. Our role starts when you made the investment and continues through the time that you get out of the investment. So if there's any issues or problems along the way, we're there. We do have a lot of experience in the EB5 and E2 space and recently in the EB1C transactional space. We focus on due diligence to make sure that the options that we're providing are viable and provide the best chance for investors to be successful in their immigration journey. We do the analysis we do is really intense. It's financial, operational, and other types of due diligence. So whatever we put in front of investors, whether it's EB5, EB1C, or E2, it's been heavily vetted through our rigorous due diligence process. And we have a 100% approval rate so far over the last 10 years. Everybody that we've met with, whether they apply for EB5, E2, and now EB1C have been approved for their various petitions. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about what we do in the EB1C space, which is very similar to what we do in the E2 space. Again, the focus that we have is providing access to viable businesses that meet the criteria for the EB1C green card. And we work with law firms like David Hirson and Partners to make sure that these options are suitable for the EB1C program. We essentially have three approaches here that are available for investors. The first one is our turnkey portfolio. So we are in the process of coming out with 4 options that will provide a sort of a plug and play option, ready-made EB1C products that investors can invest directly into. I can't say a lot about them yet until we've finalized our due diligence and our agreements with those companies, but we are looking to launch those in early January. So right now, this option means if you call us up and say we'd like to do an EB1C, and we can provide you with these 4 options. It includes 2 multi-location restaurants. So the way it would be structured is to have multiple locations with different managerial levels that would meet the criteria, and also the proper number of employees and a investment amount that would be conducive to not being too expensive, but also making sure that it's substantial enough to achieve the goal. The other is a real estate investment company. This is one that has an established EB1C product that we are evaluating right now. And it is mainly on the East Coast, focused on the East Coast of the United States, a little bit into the Southwest as well. But it's a very well thought out and structured real estate investment company option. And the last is a multi-location health and fitness company based in Utah, I believe, and also being grown into California and other Western states. This one also is proven its viability through other locations, and it will serve as one of our top 4 options in the portfolio. Our goal is to continue to grow this portfolio across multiple different industries, so we'll have something that will appeal to everybody. The other 2 options we have are more of a consulting arrangement, where if you don't like any of the turnkey portfolio options that we have, you want to try and find something else that's a little more suitable to your budget, where you want to live, interests that you have, whether you have certain experience, maybe the existing business that you're associated with in your native country, and also how much you want to be involved. A lot of people want to invest and hire somebody else to sort of manage it, and obviously still maintaining the requirements of the EB1C program, ownership and control, but finding people to manage the day-to-day. So based on the answers to those questions and the information we gather from an initial investor survey that we put out, we can we usually use that to come up with 3 to 5 viable options. And then you have a choice. You can choose for us to kind of step out of the process at that point and let you work with the businesses that we've identified and move it through to a closing. Or if you'd like us to do things like conducting due diligence, as I mentioned, our due diligence efforts are very substantial, focused on business, financial, and operational due diligence. If you want somebody to help negotiate the terms of the entire transaction, all the agreements, including lease agreements, other things related to where the business is going to be operating out of, facilitating the transaction closing with all the parties, immigration attorney, business attorney, the business plan writer, everybody involved in the transaction, and then also being able to access some additional capital for either the transaction itself or for growth of the company as the company continues to mature. So we have several different options available: the turnkey option, direct investment into a pre-selected company or companies, and also the consulting side, which will help you to find one that we can help you find one that's more specifically suitable to your specific needs and desires. Next slide. So this is just kind of a quick snapshot of you know, some of the different industries that we've identified. We've identified multiple companies within each of these industries that fit the criteria for EB1C, that are large enough to be able to meet the requirements, but also small enough so it's not too large of an initial investment to get things going and get the business started. Understanding that, again, you know, we want to make sure that the company is going to be viable. It's based on a proven business model that's already been successful in the past. That way, it increases the likelihood of success for the investor. And some of the important things here are, you know, David and Evelyn talked about the different management levels. We made sure that those were present. We also wanted to focus on types of businesses that had high success rates over at least a 5-year period of time or longer. So we've picked one. We basically are focusing on businesses that have an 80% or more success rate. Obviously, the higher the better. And then also, you know, because you can see number of open locations. These are businesses that have been doing it for a while. They've been successful at it. They're in growth mode, and they've been able to show that they can make money. So then also time to open and time to cash flow. Those are very, very important items to understand. And, you know, we want to make sure that we're focusing on businesses that are going to be profitable as soon as possible. And also ones that are not going to take too long to build out if it's going to be a new business. And again, fitting in with that 1-year time frame of being viable at the end of 1 year, and making sure, again, that it fits that criteria. Next slide. So this slide and the next slide really just kind of give you an idea on the left-hand side of all the different industries that we have access to and available. This is, again, for more of the consulting side of the business that we talked about, the consulting options, not the turnkey options. But these are some of the franchises that we have access to. We actually have access to over, I think, 1,400 different, 1,400 different different businesses around the country. Obviously, that gets narrowed down a lot as you apply the EB1C criteria. That being said, there's still many viable businesses that can fit the criteria. And next slide. Again, more examples of some businesses, and again, all these different industries on the side. Fitness, boutique fitness, health and beauty, education, senior care, retail, pretty much you name it, we can find it. And again, this is a builds off of our E2 business that also has this capability. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we've been in it for 10 years. Our focus is on the business side, doing transactional processing, doing business advisory. We've been doing it, and we actually haven't updated the slide. Now we're, you know, with our collective team, we've run to over 100 years of merger and acquisition advisory experience with all the managing principals and directors of our company. So when it comes to finding a business, evaluating a business, negotiating the terms of a transaction, seeing through a transaction to closing, and finding viable businesses for investors, representing investors and their interests, that's what we do. And we thankfully over the last 10 years have obtained experience and knowledge of the immigration industry. And so we've been able to kind of merge the two and marry the two interests and build off of our longstanding history on the business advisory side and come together with the immigration side of it. We do offer an initial free consultation that will, you know, give people an idea of what we can do for you. It includes access to the survey, the initial client survey that will give us an idea of what types of things the investor might be interested in, especially if they're not interested in some of the turnkey options that we're going to have. And then we also offer support, as I mentioned, from start to finish, not only on the investment side, from the moment you get into the moment you get out, but also we have a Black Card concierge service that will allow, that will provide other services to help you become acclimated to the United States, depending, on wherever you want to live. Access to real estate, access to homes, access to other investment opportunities, getting integrated into the communities that you want to get integrated to, and that obviously doesn't happen right away. So we maintain and build a relationship with you, and utilize that relationship as we go through to provide you more and more services as you need them throughout your integration into the United States. So I see we have a question that was posed to me in the chat regarding how we define success rate in the chart that I showed. Success rate basically is number of percentage of businesses of locations that have opened up for those particular businesses that we selected that have been in operation for 3 years or more. So if they've shown profitability for 3 years or more, and they've existed and they continue to exist for over 3 years, that's what we consider success, a success rate. And that is utilized and accessed from information we've gathered from the companies, as well as our own due diligence, working with our partners in the franchise and business broker arena. So I think that's the end of my presentation. Gene, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. Man, if you didn't get enough about EB1C in the last 54 minutes, you never will. Thank goodness everybody will have access to this presentation. So I know you're all taking copious notes, but at least you have amazing competency now in understanding the EB1C process. Opening the floor for questions. I'm looking at a different screen. So Mike and David, if y'all see a question come up, let me know. And I've got some questions that had been prepared that I don't mind asking if we don't have any particular questions right now. And Evelyn, thank you.
I see no additional questions, so feel free to go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna let y'all help us with this. The first one is, how long do I have to keep the U.S. business, the company, running after I receive my EB1C green card?
Evelyn?
Okay, so we get this question a lot. So we just really have to be careful, because we really want to make sure that no one misunderstand that they, intention to start a new business or acquire existing business in the US to get the EB1C green card. There has to be a genuine intention to also develop the business, right, as a global company, not just to obtain this EB1C green card and quickly exit. So we highly recommend to keep the business. I mean, of course, if extraordinary circumstances such as COVID-19 or force majeure, some natural disasters happen, then of course, US government understand that sometimes things can happen and you sometimes are forced to close the business. But in the normal circumstances, it is highly recommended to keep the business at least for 6 months, more the better, or 1 year. Because when the EB1C employee applies for the citizenship after 5 years, they are going to reopen and carefully review their past history. And they really want to make sure that it is not used as a visa fraud to just obtain green card and then exit quickly. But the whole, like I mentioned in the beginning, the whole purpose of this program is to promote commerce between US and the foreign company in the foreign country. So keep that in mind. So 6 months is minimum, but of course, more the better. But if you have to and forced to close the business, then usually we recommend 6 months.
So one other point is that the proof of your working is go on payroll, get payroll, file tax returns, and keep those records, because that's the perfect way of showing what happened 5 years earlier.
Yes.
Thank you, Jane.
Good. Yeah. I'm gonna try, I've got lots of questions. I'm gonna try to keep these kind of pertinent of the 10,000 questions about all of this. Again, to the panel, nobody in particular, what amount of capital, cash, do I need to put into a U.S. business company to help me get this EB1C started?
Well, if it's a new startup or you're acquiring, you have to put in enough money to start it up or acquire what you're doing. So the amount is measured in business terms as reasonable. There's no dollar amount, there's no bright line test.
So
And
go ahead.
I would add to that with no numbers, but understanding that if it is a startup in particular, there are many costs. Typically, or even if you're acquiring an existing business, the cost may be more than just the acquisition price itself. It could be, you know, additional things you need to grow. It could be, you know, other things to make sure that the business continues to be viable. So I would make sure that whatever business somebody looks at, you understand that that's why the due diligence is so important ahead of time, the financial due diligence in particular, because we'll help identify maybe some deficiencies in the company that you're acquiring that may require additional capital beyond the acquisition cost. So, you know, keep that in mind as you're looking to make a business acquisition or investment for your EB1C.
Yeah, just to chime in for number 2. So just to give you a little bit of some general idea, usually the corporate clients who are launching their US business or expanding their US business, the ranges, the amount of investment ranges between $1.5 to $2.5 million. For those clients who are acquiring franchise business, we've seen it ranges between $700,000 to $1 million plus. So it really varies, because for a franchise model, we usually recommend to acquire more than 2 stores, because the number of employees really matters. The subordinate employees working under our EB1C clients really matters. So it really depends on type of business, scope, size of business, but usually ranges between $600,000-$700K to 1 million. But big corporate clients, investment amount obviously is much bigger, 1.5 to 2.5 million plus.
Yep. And one more thing I'd say about going back to the franchise thing for a second is the options that we mentioned, our turnkey options, are focus on franchises that usually is accomplished in getting access to a particular territory. So, you know, looking to go into a region or a territory that they are looking to sell to a business owner or franchisee, understanding that they're going to build out multiple units within that area. So they get exclusive rights within that area to build out a certain number of units. And that way, you know, it will more than meet the requirements of EB1C.
We've got one last, it's 8 o'clock, we're at the top of the hour, but Evelyn or someone that I'm unable to read that question that came in.
Yeah,
but
so
if it's something you can answer quickly, let's go ahead and do that.
all right, so somebody asked this question in Korean, so I'm gonna translate. So the person is asking, what if the business in Korea and business in the US are unrelated franchise business or any kind of other business? Can they still qualify for EB1C? And of course, in Korea, that person has been running business for 3 years or more and has enough qualifying experience as a business person. So our answer is yes. The type of business on both end, Korea and US, do not have to be exactly same or even similar. It can be very different. The key point is whether this person, the executive or manager of EB1C, who's being sponsored for EB1C green card, do have that qualifying skill set, management skill set, business experience to be able to oversee and monitor this US business. So the type of business do not have to be identical.
Now, the other issue is control. Either a separate holding company or individual shareholders of each must hold those ratios to have control through the third party or individually into each of the entities, one in the US and one in Korea. So there has to be some level of relationship.
네, 지금 저기 그 organizer 하신 분께서 한국말로도 답변을 해드리라고 해서 제가 간단하게 한국말로 설명을 드리면은 그 한국과 미국과의 사업체는 반드시 관련이 없어도 가능하고요. 그 다음에 저희가 가장 중심적으로 보는 것이 뭐냐면 그 발령을 받아서 주재원으로서 미국에 넘어오는 그분께서 정말 이 미국의 회사를 운영하고 또 그 부하 직원들을 잘 관리 감독을 할 수 있는 자격이 되는지를 보는 것이 가장 핵심적인 요소이기 때문에 사실 두 사업체가 꼭 반드시 같아야 된다는 그런 조항은 없습니다. Okay, I'm done.
And I agree completely with you. Thank you, Evelyn.
No problem.
I'm going to ask someone who is controlling the slides if they would to put up the final slide so I can start to bring this webinar to a close. And the final slide basically has contact information, which you will all receive. But I just want to thank everybody for your participation in this webinar. There's so many more questions. All attendees, you'll have access to this webinar itself. You'll be directed to our other webinars if you'd like to see the other ones we've had in the past. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us and let us know what your needs are. Remember, this is our 4th episode in this webinar series, but on January 20th of this coming year, we're going to have our final webinar in this series, and it'll basically be a combination of understanding the E2, EB5, EB1C, and process and pulling it all together. So we're here to help you determine the best immigration path for you and your family. Please do not hesitate again to contact any of us involved in this team, InvestAmerica, David Hirson, his partners, Evelyn, any of the folks involved. On behalf of the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce Southeast, InvestAmerica itself, David Hirson and his partners, I thank each of you so much for attending today's webinar. Don't forget, if you will, from a media standpoint, like our respective companies on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. It helps us promote what we're trying to do, and share the video of this event to your friends and associates. Please do. Don't hesitate. So to all of you, have a wonderful holiday season. Happy New Year to each one of you. Hope to see you on January the 20th of 2021, and we all bid you farewell. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.